attempt, this was mere preparation, perhaps. And as some legal scholars have suggested on air, and those of us, and I've practiced in both prosecution and criminal defense, he kind of stumbled on to a defense that can work in some circumstances where mere preparation does not actually become attempt. There has to be what the law calls an overt act in furtherance of the whole crime. And so when you're charged with attempt, it's not necessarily that you were thwarted, but that there was at least more than mere preparation. And yet, when you look at the facts surrounding this, and I think the DOJ did an excellent job prosecuting this, this was more than mere preparation, and it appeared, at least to everyone, including the jury that didn't take that long to deliberate, that the only reason that this individual was likely thwarted from an actual attempt and a shot fired toward President Trump and potentially Secret Service and others who were with him at the golf course is because he was spotted by a Secret Service agent and ultimately brought down and arrested. So never had the opportunity to then fire that shot. So nobody was buying this. I don't think they should have bought it. He ended up, after the guilty verdict, trying to stab himself with a pencil, was brought down by deputies. And in my opinion, that kind of appears to suggest that, he's trying to go for some kind of, in mental health situation, so that he's not just fully in custody in a prison, maybe wants to go to a mental health institution. Whether or not he deserves to be there, I guess we'll leave to those who are evaluating him. But the good news is that he was guilty on all 5 counts. I think this was the correct verdict. And as Jonathan Turley said yesterday on Fox News, although he represented himself, he could have had the most phenomenal defense attorney making those arguments for him. It likely would have been the same result. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel is back on air in what the leftists were suggesting is, the biggest return and most anticipated late night monologue in late night history. And they're just trying to prop this up as if this was going to be somehow as big for the left as Charlie Kirk's memorial was on Sunday for, the reasonable, rational, God-fearing people in the country and the world. And obviously, that really didn't come off the way that they wanted. But Jimmy Kimmel apparently, and I didn't watch it because I didn't care, but he apparently made an 18-minute monologue, including his mea culpa and what we're titling here in our clip list, Jimmy Kimmel non-apology, saying that he was misunderstood. This is cut 5.
I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way.
All right. Well, let's welcome in Steve Deace, who is host of Steve Deace Show. And Steve, are you buying this apology from Jimmy Kimmel?
No.
I agree with you. And 100% no. He's just mad that he was actually held accountable for his actions and for his words. And yet, now after, 6 days, he's back on air. So this really isn't that much of accountability, is it?
No, it's not. And the reality is there's quite a few people on the right who could generate more traffic on a Twitter space, an X space, than Jimmy Kimmel can generate an audience for a television show on network TV. So you have to ask yourself, really, who is paying for this? And really, they're not paying for it. They're subsidizing it. And you need to realize that I draw more downloads for my podcast than much of MSNBC's non-prime time programming does all day long. And then people like Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, they would outdraw that would be the elite tier in our industry. They draw more downloads per episode than the entire 12A to 12P cumulative audience of MSNBC, including their prime time. And the same is true of CNN. I have more people 25 to 54 that listen to me than watch CNN. Fact. So, I mean, you have to ask yourself then, since there's no ratings to this, since it's generating really zero audience, given the outlay of what all this costs and is being summoned, I would venture a guess, Jenna, the number one audience for CNN. I mean, what do you think the cum of the View is? What do you think it is? What do you think the cumulative audience for the View is? Just guess.
From 12 p.m. to 12 a.m.
No,
is that the time frame?
The full audience for the TV show The View on ABC.
The View on The View. Oh, wow.
The harpies that sit around, just trying to figure out, how much estrogen we can all just mainline into our systems. What do you think
and how much
total audience for that is?
Bitterness we can, plug into one studio. I would think probably less than 500,000.
You're actually low. It's about 1.3 million is their audience. All right, but
that's actually way high.
The amount of,
in my opinion, way too high for that.
The biggest audience for The View is conservative media counter programming, and the clicks it generates off of what it says. And that's the same thing for all of CNN's programming, and that's the same thing for all of MSNBC programming. I guarantee you that if conservative media had not pointed out what Jimmy Kimmel said, we would have found out, what happens when a tree falls in the forest. We are amplifying these entities in our response to them. And sometimes that's necessary, sometimes it's not. But I just simply point that out, that the audiences are not there. They're not even within their own worldview. People largely aren't watching this or consuming it. So you have to ask yourself then, who's paying for this? And it's really a subsidy. It's really a subsidy because your ROAS, your return on ad spent for running an ad on Jimmy Kimmel is jack freaking squat. That's what the rate card ought to say. Your ROAS for running an ad on Rachel Maddow is jack freaking squat. You're subsidizing this. And there's a thing in advertising called affinity advertising. And we have it on our side too, meaning that you so believe in the message. And you see this a lot in sports media, for example, where, people will advertise with the local team, not expecting much of a ROAS, but they want to support the local university team, so they'll buy a bunch of ads on their university radio network, right? Plus, sometimes you can have a certain amount of losses you can write off elsewhere, okay? But you're not really doing it as a transaction or an investment. It's an affinity for you. Maybe you're an alum, okay? And people are spending billions of dollars in affinity advertising to keep these networks and to keep these shows on the air because the audience is not there.
Well, and it just proves the point that this is propaganda, right? Because this isn't about the bottom line. Yeah. This isn't about actually giving viewers what they, this isn't consumer driven. This isn't capitalism.
You're making a very important point. I want to make sure your audience understands how important your point is. Because if people are paying billions of dollars for a product nobody's watching and consuming, what that really means is the so-called marketplace of ideas is gone. In fact, the marketplace of ideas is what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. He said something into the ether, the marketplace didn't like it, and responded accordingly. That's actually the marketplace of ideas. The marketplace of ideas is Nexstar and Sinclair saying, well, we're still going to take 70 affiliates, including several in major markets away from you and not put you back on, despite what Disney says. That's actually the marketplace of ideas. The marketplace of ideas is not, there is no market for what I'm saying. My following is almost entirely bots. There is no market for it. Like, no one's watching this in terms of what people are probably actually assuming. And actually counter reactions to me from people hostile to my viewpoint generates more heat than I can from what I'm saying natively to my own audience. If that impacts, we have to understand what time it is then. It's no longer, hey, call the advertisers and tell them that you won't buy. Who are you going to call? Because all their advertisers are big. You're going to call Pfizer? You're going to call George Soros? Which means our ability to enter into a neutral space, you see where I'm going with this? Our ability to enter into a neutral space and have a community countrywide, community-wide hearing on what we want to hear and what kind of values we want disseminated, whether they reflect us or not, is gone. That's what that means. It means there are entities that are willing to pay billions of dollars to inject this rot gut and toxicity into the water table of the culture, expecting no return on investment, or at least not the return on investment that you think they're expecting. They're getting a return, actually. That's my point. It's just not the traditional marketplace return. They're spewing what you said, propaganda. That's the affinity. They want this message, all right? Not about the money, as the Joker said. Not about the money. It's about sending a message. That's what it is. It's about the message. And that's why Disney continues to make movies that flop. Disney went 40 years, Jenna, had one flop 40 years ago, okay? The Black Cauldron was the last movie that Disney made that financially, in 1983, was the last time they made a film that did not generate a profit until 4 years ago. And now they've had at least five. At least five.
And they're not trying. No, and the reason for that, as you said, Steve, is because when you are investing in propaganda, you're basically investing in advertising, and you don't expect a return in the sense of financial. You expect that to be a net loss. In the sense that it's an advertising spend. And really what people need to understand here, what we're saying, is that all of these programs, that's the advertisement. It's not what happens during the commercial break. Those programs are the advertisements, and it's being spun to society that people are actually tuning in, and that is the mainstream. And programs like yours, like mine, like the conservatives that you mentioned, Glenn Beck, Megyn Kelly. Oh, those are the fringe podcasts. These are the ones that hardly anybody listens to because cable news is dominating, and that's the propaganda that they continue to spend. And when those programs have enough funding to continue to just put a ton of advertising dollars in it, they're actually doing what they're intended to do, which is not to actually turn a profit. It's to invest a message and indoctrinate society.
Correct. And, similar to how we donate to missions, there's always a satanic, demonic counterpart to the kingdom of God. Always. So similar how we donate to missions. People donate to the American Family Association, not because they think it's going to return an 11% yield, but because, on their portfolios, because they think it's going to be a net positive outcome to the culture that they want to leave behind for their kids and grandkids or raise their kids and grandkids in. Well, what you and I are itemizing for people is the demonic, satanic counterfeit of that. This is missions. This is evangelism. This is apologetics by the spirit of the age. That's what this is. And we need to understand that. And so when you see things like, well, if we use the FCC and go after their public license, they'll do the same thing to us. They're already doing those things. Maybe I missed it when they shot my friend in the throat 2 weeks ago. And maybe I missed it when YouTube, I have the largest show on the right that cannot generate any YouTube following whatsoever. It's a miracle. We generate seven figures in ad revenue in my show every year. And because I cannot monetize at all the number one video platform on earth because of the work I did during COVID. And yesterday they come out and just admit, we screwed people like you and did it because the government told us. And people now want to say, well, they'll do it to us if we do it. They already did it to us, and no one was punished. Okay, no one was punished. What's the point of even having a public license then? then at that point, just never fund the organization again. Let's just all move on. But don't vote to fund the FCC in a budget and then come back and tell me it's mafioso tactics when we want to say, hey, you can't lie to people like that on public airwaves and get a license. You can't have it both ways. We do this to ourselves all the time. We emasculate ourselves all the time. Meanwhile, they're out there just shredding the Constitution in broad daylight, lighting it on fire. And then literally now they're just shooting at us.
Mm-hmm. And this is
so
where,
we
Steve,
have to understand what time it is.
Absolutely. And this is where I respectfully disagree with my friends over at the National Religious Broadcasters, because they put out yesterday a press release. I don't know if you saw this, but the title was NRB Champions Free Speech Encourages FCC to Safeguard Diverse Media Voices. And talking about how, basically if the FCC is cutting off some voices, then inevitably that will be turned against Christian religious broadcasters. But like you said, they're already doing it. So why are we in our very, very minority? Yeah, and in our very, very minority.
We can't do it both ways, Jenna. We either all play by the same rules and they are enforced, or we have to play by the rules as the competition and then enforce those against them.
Yeah, why are we defending why are we defending our oppressors? Now, I get it in the sense of, okay, we want free and fair debate. I'm going to defend, to the death, as we saw, unfortunately, Charlie Kirk literally defended to the death the right to have a public forum and to have free speech. But that doesn't mean that when people are held accountable, then we go and we say, well, no, we don't want them held accountable because we don't want them to turn on and cancel us, because that's a totally different outcome. Actually being held accountable for promoting violence or, for what Jimmy Kimmel did, he was held accountable. He wasn't canceled. And I don't like how a lot of Christians and conservatives are conflating those two to say, well, we can never hold the left accountable because then they might take it too far against us. Well, they, like you said, they already are. And if we are the party and the viewpoint of law and order, then we need to actually impose that and say, here is why you are being punished for your conduct. It's like suggesting somehow to Charlie's killer that, hey, we're not going to put you in prison because then somehow you might wrongly imprison some Christian conservatives. We would never say that.
Correct. We need to understand there are no more neutral spaces. All right. We're in a cold civil war. So one of two things will happen. Their worldview will win, or ours. Now, I can't speak for everyone within the sound of my voice, but I kind of like cold civil wars better when my side wins. And so here's how we cannot win. We cannot win enforcing a system of rules against ourselves that the other side will not abide by, while we then do not enforce them upon them when we have the power to do so. What is the point of rules if there's no enforcement to them? So one of two things must happen. Either we must play by the rules we all thought we once had, and then when we have the power to enforce them for breaking them, we must do so, or then we play by their rules, okay? And so we have a level playing field. But this idea that we continue on this higher pious plane, we are losing our country for good if we do that. And you just don't know what time it is. You have to understand where we are, all right? They're creating martyrs now. You talked about the second shooter against Trump. Did they ever come out in the trial? Did we ever find out? How did this guy get the president's private schedule on a Sunday that wasn't publicized, where he was going to be golfing? Did that ever come out? I'd like to know.
Right. And there were a number of things, and I don't think it did. And I was watching some of the coverage yesterday, and several commentators were saying, okay, this is great that he was found guilty on all this, but we haven't completed the fuller investigation. And I hope that with Charlie's killer, I think that the FBI, and I do trust Dan Bongino, I think he's a very solid guy, and he would rather leave and quit and then tell the truth than be complicit in any sort of half-done investigation or any kind of, cover-up of, any of those conspiracy theories. I don't buy into them. But what law enforcement sometimes fails to do is actually go and investigate the fuller extent of what happened so that we can prevent it from happening in the future.
Correct. Yep. I mean, somehow this was not on Trump's public schedule. It was not, the public was not told where he was at on that Sunday, where he was golfing. This did not happen at Mar-a-Lago. So how did this guy, some rando who once appeared in a BlackRock commercial with a Ukraine flag, how this rando just happened to know within days after a millimeter short assassination attempt, how did he just happen to know where a former presidential candidate was spending a private day away from the campaign, away from his own grounds on another golf course on a Sunday when it wasn't publicly released? How did he just happen to know he was there?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and these types of things are what we need to investigate and we need to understand so that we don't have more and more and more situations. And everybody keeps saying that this is just about political violence. I don't buy that, Steve. I mean, yes, it's political violence, but I think it's way, way more than that. I think that this is a targeting specifically of Christians who are outspoken about their faith, or people who are going to bring their faith into government and politics. And so this isn't just about an attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. This isn't just the targeting of, a guy on a college campus because he was a conservative politico. This is way deeper than that. And until we reconcile with that as a society and as Christians, I think we're totally missing it. So last thoughts 100%. In the last minute that we have with you.
No, I think everything you said is eloquent and right on the money. And I'll just repeat this again. Either we enforce the rules against them that we all once agreed to, or we then go ahead and play by the same new rules that we're letting them play by. But we cannot have a system where we enforce the old rules against us and then don't punish them for violating the rules. That cannot happen. We will lose our country, and we're losing it now, and that's one of the primary reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. And we have to take this moment to recognize, as Steve keeps saying, what time it is, to recognize what is going on. And we can be thankful and grateful, and I am, for the revival that is sweeping the country and the nation. But we can't focus so much on that we're also missing that the left and those who are perpetuating evil in our society are going to go, oh, well, look at the revival. I guess we lost. No, this is a continual battle between right and wrong, good and evil. It is a spiritual battle. We have seen that so clearly in the last 2 weeks. So we need to continue to press forward, yes, in promoting the truth of the gospel of Christ, and also the policy and the law that outflows from that truth. So, Steve, really appreciate it. And that little voice you're hearing in the background is Jack, who's our special guest at my house, my friend's dog. But we'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
Hey, my name is Wesley Wildman.
And I'm Walker Wildman.
And we're brothers, and our family have been leading tours to the land of the Bible for more than 30 years.
Coming up in March of 2026, we would love for you to join us for something very special, a Footsteps of Paul tour, a journey through Greece.
We'll walk exactly where the Apostle Paul walked, through Athens, ancient Corinth, Philippi, and Thessalonica.
You'll enjoy unforgettable experiences and meaningful fellowship with believers and with Wesley and Walker.
And we'll eat well, laugh a lot, and yes, eat well again. And most importantly, we will grow in our faith as the Bible comes alive before your eyes. You'll get to see the very things that we read about or that your pastor talks about in church.
The Footsteps of Paul tour is March 17th through the 24th, 2026.
Register today at wildmangroup.com.
That's wildmangroup.com. We can't wait to see you there.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
My debt problem started probably about 2016. I needed my life to change financially. I called Trinity and I ended up joining based on high credit card bills and high interest rate. And my counselor at Trinity has been great, and Trinity has been helping me to get on the right path of paying off these credit card bills, bringing down the interest rate. They have consolidated my bills into one low monthly payment. And now I am finally getting out of credit card debt. So I just want to say thank you, Trinity, for showing me a better and greater path.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Sharon, and soon I will be debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next. The Rubicon has been crossed when it comes to unruly teens. From Kettering, Ohio, comes word of a Chick-fil-A that has banned teens. Anybody under the age of 17 must have an adult chaperone. The famed chicken restaurant says it had no other choice. Many other places around the nation, from malls to McDonald's, are banning kids. A Target store in Brooklyn banned children without adult supervision to curb bad behavior, and a nearby McDonald's actually cards anyone who doesn't look their age. The fact is, many parents are using shopping centers and fast food restaurants as de facto babysitters. But Chick-fil-A's job is to sell chicken, not entertain your kids. Now, some parents say it's a violation of their rights, which is simply not true. At Chick-fil-A, the only right a customer has is to a delicious fried chicken sandwich tucked between buttered buns, adorned with a pickle. Start raising your kids right, America. Come on. I'm Todd Starnes.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. Well, proving yet again that Florida is leading the way on literally everything, Lake County, Florida commissioners unanimously approved a plan yesterday to rename a local road in honor of Charlie Kirk. So this is just a really amazing thing. The Lake County Board of County Commissioners unanimously approved a proposal yesterday to rename a local road in honor of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. This is coming from Spectrum News 13. During the meeting, which started at 9 a.m. Tuesday, commissioners heard a number of people who gathered to oppose the move, and local deputies apparently removed some after causing a disruption in chambers. Shortly after public comments were heard on the proposal, the commissioners voted to approve the change. And so the proposal for the name change was made by Commissioner Anthony Sabatini shortly after Kirk was shot and killed at a university in Utah earlier this month. So Anthony Sabatini joins me now. Thanks so much for doing this, Anthony. I think this was really a wonderful way for Florida to lead, and I hope that a lot of other counties and state follow suit.
Well, I appreciate that, yeah, and I really hope they do. I mean, it only takes one to get it started, and I think I already know a few other cities and towns around the state and the country that are looking to do something similar very soon. And I assume they were going to do it anyways, but being the first is pretty significant because I think it shows that we don't need to be waiting. You know, there was an argument that maybe we should wait a while and look at this later. It's like, no, I mean, this is the most appropriate response, in the aftermath of a horrible tragedy and significant act of political violence. So we're proud of the vote.
Yeah, no, that is odd to say that there needs to be some time, as if time would change anything. I think it's perfectly appropriate personally to start these types of memorials. I hope that colleges and university buildings are named after Charlie Kirk, and there's enough in the community awareness that those who are unfortunately going to be too young then to remember Charlie when he was living will have these types of memorials to then go back and look at the impact that he made on culture for Christ. And so there were reports that there were some opposition, as I read from this piece, even leading to some people getting removed. What kind of opposition?
Well, I mean, quite literally, it was shocking, but what we found out was about 72 hours before the meeting, the local Democrat Party and some of the Democrat clubs and organizations in the metro Orlando area, all around Lake County, because we're the sort of western suburbs, Republican suburbs on the west side. But these various groups had put out a alert campaign to start bombarding us with calls and emails in opposition, which I think really shocked a lot of people, especially on the commission. I thought the debate was going to be what road, what kind of a road do we want to name. But instead, it was just a bunch of sort of hateful people from the extreme left coming out to say that they just simply don't want anything named after Charlie Kirk. And they buffed probably 80 or 90 people, and we literally had 80 or 90 people speak against the proposal. Of course, we had enormous support from our side, but I was shocked to see them there. And, yeah, I mean, it was just old distorted quotes saying things like Charlie was a hateful person, just really nonsensical stuff that, of course, was not effective. The vote passed unanimously 5-0. But yeah, they came, and it was a completely orchestrated event from a radical political movement.
Wow, that is incredible that the left, even in the midst of the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, and then kind of all of that notoriety of saying, there is accountability if you lie, if you take things out of context, if you glorify violence, all of these things, and yet people are still believing that fake news, and they're coming out to object to a memorial highway. I mean, that is so low in my opinion, and something that they should be utterly ashamed of. But I'm really grateful that you and the other commissioners were undaunted and unmoved by that, and ultimately chose to honor Charlie Kirk in this way. And so the stretch of road, I read two different articles on which road it actually is. So is this Wellness Way, or is this Schofield Road in Lake County?
Sure. So it's actually Schofield Road. Originally, the proposal was Wellness Way. There was a little bit of debate. I think they're both great roads. Both basically, they're both west to east corridors between the heart of Lake County to more urban Western Orange and Orlando area. Both coming into Lake County that are not state roads. We only had the authority to choose a county road. And so those were the two best options. I kind of wanted Wellness Way more, but one of the other commissioners thought Schofield was better. They're both great. Schofield's objectively more beautiful. It leads into one of the largest agritourism farms in the area called Southern Hills, really large, beautiful farm that is very distinctive to Lake County. So I think that's a cool way, into Lake County. And I think people see the Charlie Kirk thing and they immediately know our values. They know our culture here in Lake County, and that's, I think, why it's a good option.
Oh, that's wonderful, and that all makes sense. And so, when will this change take place? Because my understanding is that there's still some construction in the area going on, and so is this immediate, or when can we expect it? I'm sure that a lot of people in Florida, myself included, I want to go out and take a picture of the signs and share that on social media and all of that. So when can we expect those to be put up?
It could be as soon as 30 days. We actually didn't get a chance because the meeting was so long. We didn't get a chance to speak details, but we do know that generally these takes 30 to 60 days. But yeah, they'll have everything prepared. I mean, the traffic department will start doing the markers, historic marker titles, probably literally next week. And then, of course, I'll let everyone know on social media when it is, and once it goes up, I think it'll be sort of a little bit of a tour site where people come out and take a picture of it because, obviously everybody loved Charlie and Turning Point, and it's, first in the nation. So I think a lot of people are going to go get pictures.
Yeah, I've seen that even in the comments to your social media posts, how, people who live in the area, but even people who don't, who are saying, I want to drive up there to Lake County, and if they're down in southern Florida and take pictures. And I think you're right that that's going to be just a beautiful way to honor him. So Anthony Sabatini, really appreciate it so much. And he's a commissioner in Lake County, Florida, for the Charlie Kirk Memorial Highway. And just really appreciate this so much. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, thank you very much, Jenna. Take care.
Thanks so much. I love to see it. All right, we'll be back with more here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, how many times I would have taken you under my wings. They had everything that was necessary for them to know Jesus and follow him, and they went their way.
I think for nations, for individuals, there is a day that you have to make the decision to respond to the Lord, and it might be that the door of opportunity after that shuts.
Exploring the Word, weekdays 3 p.m. Central on AFR.
There's an invisible war raging all around us, a cosmic conflict between good and evil that impacts every area of your life. This week on Pathway to Victory, Dr. Robert Jeffress launches an eye-opening new series called Spirit Wars. You'll discover the true nature of spiritual warfare and how this ancient battle affects your daily struggles. Join us for the series Spirit Wars this week on Pathway to Victory.
Weekday mornings at 6 Central on American Family Radio.
I say this so no one will delude you with persuasive argument. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Texas A&M University fired English lecturer Melissa McColl after she was caught on video indoctrinating students in her children's literature class to introduce little ones to LGBTQIAP+ ideology. In the video, she was recorded dismissing a student who objected to the instruction. The university's president, Mark Welsh III, initially said he wasn't going to fire the professor and defended the abominable instruction. But once the videos went viral, the president fired the professor after previously removing the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and the head of the English department. We are experiencing a worldview clash. God's word versus man's word.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner, or visit the podcast page at afr.net for more from Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
If you are 65 or older, you know this. Inflation is hitting everyone hard right now, especially when it comes to healthcare. Over the last 10 years, healthcare costs have skyrocketed by, get this, 230%. If you have Medicare Parts A and B, you know there are still out-of-pocket expenses like deductibles and copayments, and they really add up. But here's some good news. MediShare 65 Plus is designed to fill in those gaps and help protect you from rising healthcare costs. At only $99 per month up to age 75, you get peace of mind at a price you can afford. And MediShare is trusted, too. It's been around 30 years. It's not some big impersonal thing. It's a community of people helping each other, business owners, pastors, retirees. People love it. MediShare 65 Plus just makes sense. To learn more, give them a call. They're great to talk to. They'll offer to pray with you each time you call, too. Call now. 833-45-BIBLE. That's 833-45-BIBLE. 833-45-BIBLE.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. Well, we are monitoring breaking news here that 3 people have been shot, according to Fox News 4, in an active shooter situation at a Dallas ICE facility. So what's being reported so far is that according to police sources on the scene, 3 people were shot and multiple are in critical condition. The suspect, armed with a rifle, was a sniper on a roof. Police said the suspect died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head as agents approached. Dozens of police units and multiple ambulances were seen off of I-35 East near Empire Central. What we don't know, according, again, to Fox 4, is the total number of victims. That's currently unclear, but at least reports of 3 that are in critical condition. It is unknown whether the suspect was on the roof of the ICE building or a building nearby. So probably later on in our news breaks and other shows here on American Family Radio Network, we'll have more for you as that continues to unfold. So meanwhile, President Trump was at the United Nations yesterday delivering a blistering rebuke. The president boasted of American strength and American economy while slamming the recognition of the Palestinian quote-unquote state at the United Nations. According to the New York Post, President Trump condemned moves by Western nations to recognize a Palestinian state on Tuesday, claiming such steps would only reward Hamas for the atrocities committed on October 7th, 2023, as we are close to the second anniversary of that horrible terrorist attack in Israel. Speaking before the United Nations General Assembly, Trump called on world powers to help him secure a hostage release deal rather than join the wave of countries that have formally recognized a Palestinian state. Quote to President Trump, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize the Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. So joining me now to discuss all this and more is Congressman Marlin Stutzman from the great state of Indiana, a frequent guest on our show. We always love having you, Congressman. So your thoughts overall on Trump and I think his very powerful message at the United Nations.
Yeah, good morning, Jenna. Great to be with you. I tell you what, I mean, again, just what a week when President Trump goes into the UN and just lays it down. I was just, again, so impressed. And I tell you what, it'd be so easy, especially because, you know, so many greater parts of the world, and I think this is something that we're seeing not only in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, but the rest of the world sees that the United States is back. I mean, we are good is winning, and the evil just continues to rise its head up even more right now. And for President Trump to go in and to defend Israel, which it used to be kind of an easy thing to do, to stand with Israel, but boy, today it's not as easy as it used to be because there's so much misinformation. There's so many people that are just deceiving other people. And, we even see it in our own district, where young people, Christians, people that you would always think would be an issue that even if they are not strongly as supportive of Israel, they'd at least just kind of be ambivalent about it. But no, there's a real seed that's being planted that, Israel's the problem here. And, it's a dangerous one and one that I think is biblically wrong. God has chosen his children in Israel. Thankfully, as a Christian, God gave us a way, and we're celebrating that, especially in the wake of Charlie's death. We had an incredible service last night honoring him, and we had about 2,000 people in Northeast Indiana show up for that. But they appreciate President Trump's leadership on these issues and going right into the belly of the beast at the UN and standing up for what's right and calling them out on what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that hopefully our executives and President Trump has always been bold. He's always said clearly what he's thinking and what he means. I think nobody can accuse President Trump of ever mincing his words. But I think in the wake of especially what's happened over the last 2 weeks, and not just even exclusively with the heinous murder of Charlie Kirk, but also with all of the violence that we're seeing from the multiple school shootings to all of this going on, the stabbing of that young woman on the train in North Carolina, now all of these attacks, even to this sniper now this morning in Dallas at an ICE facility. This is just continued to amplify, and so we need to have action, and we need to make sure that this is not commonplace in America. And so, what should be the response to this when clearly law enforcement, local law enforcement is doing their job? But this speaks, I think, to a broader societal problem, and perhaps even to borrow a phrase from the left, a systemic problem of glorifying violence and actually carrying out violence because of their worldview.
Yeah, well, ironically, President Trump is being criticized by the Colombian president for the war on drugs. And, this is President Trump's policy with these drug boats that are traveling across from South America to the United States with loads of drugs to come into the country. And he's taken out 3 or 4 of them now. And even went on board another one and captured 5,000 pounds, I believe. It was an incredible amount of cocaine. And all of a sudden, President Trump's the bad guy? That's just ridiculous. And to me, it reminds me of what President Reagan said, to walk softly and carry a big stick. Well, I think President Trump, he's walked softly, but nothing, when you don't see changes because people don't respect America, and they go ahead and it's like, well, we're just not going to pay our money to NATO for the defense of Europe. We're not going to, and the NATO allies, we're going to continue to send folks into the United States. And then when President Trump makes the decision that we're going to go bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities, we're going to take out drug lords, boats that are transporting drugs into the United States, and he actually uses the big stick. It reminds me, it's like, all of a sudden they're the ones screaming like, oh, how dare you? And they've had the warnings. And we've never done much about it over the past several decades with, Joe Biden leadership or President Obama leadership. And the rest of the world just thinks they can get away with whatever they want to do because there's no consequences. And I think that's the important part that's happening here. And even in American society, the left has been teaching no consequences to actions, in so many different ways, whether it's in our education system to our kids or whether it's out on the streets with defunding the police and not supporting law enforcement. And now even on a foreign policy level where America's not going to do anything, just go ahead and build a nuclear facility. And, oh, by the way, we'll send you, pallet loads of cash to try to, don't use it against anybody. Well, President Trump's policy is not that. And, he will be your friend if you're a friend to America, but he will also be your enemy. They're the enemy. If there's consequences to their actions by sending drugs into America, you're going to lose your votes. And sooner or later, the message should break through that these consequences are real. They're going to continue to happen, and maybe you should stop hurting America. So I think it's wonderful policy.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And I'm speaking with Congressman Marlin Stutzman from Indiana. And so, to what extent then do you think that this speech was designed specifically for that audience and for, other global leaders, or for domestic audiences here in the United States and base mobilization rather than just global messaging, or kind of both? I mean, I think that the Americans here want to see these types of messaging, but we also want to see some follow through and some action.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think it is both. It's definitely a message sent to global leadership. As we saw, China is, of course, they're trying to have it both ways. They want us to buy their goods, but yet they don't participate in the rest of the world's civilization as far as treating their labor with better standards. They mistreat Christians. They mistreat their own people. And, we've been calling them out for that. And then, of course, India gets together with China and Russian leaders. And, I feel like they're trying to show some force back against this, this new America that is standing strong. And we're going to see that, and that's okay. But I think that's what the message is to the American people, is that we all said we don't like it the way that things were. And so when you don't like the way things are, a struggling economy, the border's wide open, you got crime on the streets, and then all of a sudden someone says, you know what, we don't like that, so let's change it. And then when the change actually comes, then some people will be like, oh, well, I didn't know it was going to take that. I don't like that. Well, no, that's actually how you have to fix it. You have to, to stand strong against the evil, and that's what President Trump is doing. And so I think it's a message to both the global leaders and also, of the American people. But I think what, can happen out of this as well is other countries, like Germany or countries like England. I mean, look what's going on in England right now. Once their citizens see that a strong leader is doing what he says he's going to do in America, and America is now safer, more secure, and standing with allies, I think the citizens of those countries will say that's the type of leadership we want. So I think it's going to have a great impact in America, but I think it'll have a great impact around the world, where other nations, the people of those nations, that's what we want as well, and we'll start electing their leadership or demanding their leadership to behave the same way.
Yeah, I agree. And I was seeing a post on social media from a pastor who is over in, I believe, the United Kingdom. And in the aftermath of watching Charlie Kirk's memorial, was saying, just this beautiful post saying, we were happy, over here when, or we used to be when, the Queen and now the King, obviously, of England makes some kind of casual tertiary reference to Christ during their Christmas message. And we're like, yay, okay, something. And he said, here you had everyone from the president down to your cabinet secretaries, your vice president, and basically all of the executive American leadership that aren't just acknowledging Christ, but actually openly proclaiming the gospel. And he said, you should be on your knees every day in America thanking the Lord for such a country and always being willing to defend that, whatever the cost. And I thought, what a great view. And, sometimes we do get frustrated here in America for other, things in the state of affairs and all of the left. But we do need to champion those things. And I hope that this is a moment where we are going to encourage those in leadership, including yourself and those in Congress, to be even more bold about their faith and and the things that are right and good. And we do need to reclaim kind of that moral high ground of being the example for other nations. Do you think that with the memorial and with those observations from people in other countries, that hopefully this will encourage Republicans specifically to be more bold?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was talking to my sons about the service on Sunday, and our oldest son, he's like, Dad, Charlie's assassination is my 9/11. He's got now a 9/10, and I said, yeah, it is. I mean, the 9/11 brought our country together, but it's different in the sense where that was an outside attack by jihadists that attacked America, and that brought us together. But this is an internal enemy that attacked our freedoms and attacked and assassinated Charlie, an individual. And I think that we can all identify with it, especially the fact that, so many of us saw the assassination online and in almost real time. And that is going to be seared in our minds. And I think that that's why this particular fight, it's a spiritual fight. I mean, it really is a fight between good and evil. And I think that that's where our leaders, they all stood up there. I mean, it was so encouraging to see all of them talk about, Charlie's relationship with Christ, but then also go on to say, look, we all need this. We all need to have that same relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And it was so powerful, and millions of people around the world saw that. And after 9/11, we talked about the attack, as bad as it was, that we need to come together as a people. But this was a different one, where it's calling us to take that step towards Christ, and I'm so encouraged by that.
Amen. Well, we will be praying for you and everyone else on Capitol Hill, also in the White House and in the country, as hopefully we press forward to creating a more perfect union, as our founders would have wanted. So Representative Marlin Stutzman, you can follow him on all social media at Rep. Stutzman, and also reach me and my team, Jenna@afr.net.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.